All right, back for another beer review, and today is kind of a special review, and that's because I'm reviewing a beer that is on my bucket list, and that beer comes from the Founders Brewing Company out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and this is their Curmudgeon's Better Half. So this is an old ale brewed with molasses and aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. It comes in at 12.7% alcohol by volume and 35 IBUs, and at the time of review, this beer is right around 6 weeks old. So quick story time. This is a beer that has been on my bucket list since 2012, which I think is the original release year for this beer. I heard, that it was a great beer back then. But back then, even though I was a huge craft beer enthusiast, Founders did not distribute to New York State, and certainly not the Western New York area. That didn't happen until the following year, 2013, and I didn't trade a lot back then or seek out beers because there were so many beers on local beer store shelves that I haven't tried yet that I didn't really seek it out, but I just chalk it up as, hey, I'm never going to try that beer, and that's okay by me. You can't try them all. Fast forward a few years later, and a good friend of mine and former beer tuber, Ewert, aka Teku Murray of the now defunct Strange Bruisings channel, he actually acquired a bottle and was like, hey, I'm going to share it with you next time we get together. Long story short, we never crossed paths until I think a bit after, probably a year after he acquired it. In the meantime, he ended up sharing the beer with a close friend. It was around Christmas of 2015 for his friend's birthday. I totally understood. And again, I was just like, it's not meant to be. It happens. And then they re-released CBS last year, and I was like, man, are they going to re-release Curmudgeon's Better Half? Yeah, they did. So here we are with a bottle of it. Now, again, this has been on my bucket list for probably about 6.5 years, which is crazy, but finally get a chance to review it. Now, full disclosure, I'm always honest with you guys in my reviews. If you look behind me on the pretentious wall of bottles and cans, you'll see a bottle of this over here. And that's because I reviewed this about a week and a half ago. Unfortunately, I'm a terrible beer tuber, and I forgot, well, I shouldn't say I forgot. I plugged in this lav mic, but I didn't plug it in all the way, apparently, because there was nothing but static for the audio, so had to trash that review. So I know what this tastes like. I know what I think about it, but I wanted to get it on camera. I wanted to properly review it, so we will. But just be forewarned that, I'm not going to sit here and act like I never tasted it before. And, oh my God, these flavors are mind-blowing, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to do a proper review on it, but I kind of know already what I'm going for in terms of how I feel about this beer and how it's going to come over, assuming this bottle is the exact same, and it should be. Anyway, crack it open, give it a proper pour, and we'll go from there. Yeah, not much more to say about it, other than I can't wait to try this again. So pour it into the fountain. This is the KBS glass, but, it's Founders, whatever. I can't believe this color. Except for that, I can. When I did review it at first, and it did pour out, I mentioned how I'm doing so many Oktoberfests, Meriton-style Oktoberfests. Kind of looks like that. Has this, mahogany, copper, almost light rust color. There are particulates floating around there, very fine sediment, about a finger and a half of a tan head. And yeah, it just looks beautiful, but it kind of looks like a Meriton, honestly. It does. Anyway, let's get a nose. Yeah, this is what I remember smelling this beer. The barrel isn't overpowering with bourbon. There's a lot of vanilla and oak characters to this. Yeah, a lot of that molasses is very huge. A lot of caramel and toffee. There's a sweet, darker cherry. The one thing I didn't pick up on it when I was reviewing it was really the maple, and I'm not getting that kind in the nose. It just has this generic confectionery sweetness. There's a lot of molasses, there's vanilla, there's caramel, there's toffee, there's sweeter, more robust sugars to this one, but I couldn't tell you maple. Certainly, if I was reviewing this blind, I couldn't tell you that there's maple here. But yeah, it's just very layered and there's a lot of depth to the aroma, a lot of stuff going on. It just smells divine. It really does. It smells like, it's going to be a bit boozy, but it's almost 13%, and it should be. So anyway, let's get into it. Cheers. This is probably in the 55, 60 range, so perfect drinking temperature. Listen, I already reviewed this once. This is delicious. This is an absolutely delicious beer. The one thing I will say about it, though, it is a bit thin, but it's a bit thin for a 12.7% beer. It still drinks like a big beer, but instead of full body, this is medium full or lower side of full body. It is a bit thin. I wish it had a bit more of a chewy just syrupy character to it, because with everything going on in here, it would make more sense. The mouthfeel has a nice slight creaminess to it, very soft. It's not lacking carbonation, but it's on the lower side of like moderate to medium carbonation, so it's way more soft than I anticipated, but it's kind of nice. Flavor-wise, though, that vanilla on here is screaming. The bourbon's big, but again, it's more of that vanilla and oaky tannin thing going on, and less of like the straight-on bourbon character. I get a touch of maple in the taste, but it's, you know, it's very restrained and dialed back. As far as the flavors in here, though, tons of caramel, tons of toffee, and that molasses is just so big. And it is, and I love the base beer. The base Curmudgeon, I think, is a great old ale, and the molasses is obviously the star of that show, but it stars here as well, even though it's kind of, you know, again, not as big as in the regular one, because you have the barrels and more nuances and just more complexity to this one. It's still there, and it's still one of the bigger characters. I get a little bit of chest warming as it goes down into, you know, into the chest, down in the stomach. But on the palate, almost no alcohol to speak of. This is a very dangerous beer, so shout out to Guy over at Drinking Canada. I could drink a couple of these, and I would be pretty messed up, I would assume. That's like, you know, that would be drinking 5 or 6 regular 5% beers, and I'd be feeling good. Let's put it that way. But yeah, this is just very complex, very rich. This just has more of like a, like I said, a complex and robust sweetness to it. It doesn't have like straight on cane sugar, confectionery, straight sugar vibe to it. It has like your richer, like your Werther's original kind of sweetness to it, where you kind of have to appreciate the caramels and toffees of the world, the molasses of the world, more than just straight on sugar to enjoy this one. And I do. So rating wise, and this is what I gave it on the original review, rating wise, Curmudgeon's better half from Founders, not a 5 out of 5, but a 4.75 out of 5. This is everything I wanted to be, aside from the body. If the body was a bit bigger, straight on full body, this would be a 5 out of 5. That slight thinness to it stops it from being the, you know, 5 out of 5, one of the best beers I've had this year. Still one of the best beers, but it's not, you know, the top 1 or 2 beers I've had, but it's still awesome. And I think I got this bottle for like $4. I mean, come on. And when I was in Rochester, they had, you know, still had 4-packs of it, and probably cases. I didn't really ask. I just bought another bottle to re-review it. I think I'm going to grab a 4-pack of this, if not, maybe even a couple, and age them, because this is a fucking awesome beer, and it's just everything I hoped it was going to be, and it kind of lived up to the hype for me personally. So if you've had this beer, I want to hear about it, because again, this is just my opinion, and I'm curious to what you guys think about it. But Curmudgeon's better half from the Founders Brewing Company, 4.75 out of 5. Appreciate you guys stopping by. I'm glad I was able to properly review this. I'm hoping the mic is, everything's okay. And if so, I'll be posting this probably tomorrow. Anyway, till the next one. Cheers.